You may be asking, why are you cleaning your watercolor palettes, Nicole? Well, I made a terrible mistake. I went to work and it rained. Now that doesn't sound too bad. However, the day before I had been painting outside and forgot to bring my palettes back in. My pigments were obliterated by the rain. The silver lining is that I get to assess the state of my handmade polymer palette, rearrange the colors, and take the time to finally make a mixing chart and show you the whole process. Now that my palette's clean, I can take a really close look at how it's held up since I started using it. Since it's made of polymer clay and glazed, I wasn't really sure how it was gonna handle the abuse of water and paint and scrubbing and all that. As you can see, it stained really heavily. I tried scrubbing and I actually ended up taking off some of the glaze right here and over here. I also noticed that my French ultramarine blue was incredibly hard on the palette. I think it dried so hard that it pulled the, the glaze and the actual polymer apart. And you can even see on the other one I've made here, this one has 3 glazes where the other one has 2. I had a little blop of French ultramarine in this spot and it completely pulled it apart. So I'm gonna have to glue that back together and then reglaze that. So yeah, it stained fairly heavily, which that doesn't really bother me much. Otherwise, I think it held up fairly good. I'm gonna have to just be careful with the French ultramarine blue and take extra precautions that it doesn't continue to wreck it like that. And I'll move on to filling it up. Filling my wells always feels like a big deal. I spent a long time choosing the order that my colors would go in. I started the process by using my tubes to help get an idea of how I wanted them arranged. Some people arrange their colors in lights to darks or warms and cools. I went so far as to draw my palettes and paint in the colors just to be sure I had it how I liked. I ended up using a spectrum layout for the one palette, and the other I placed my earths and pastels. Once I finished filling my palettes and making custom colors, I could finally move on to making the mixing chart. The paper I used to make my mixing chart was Canson watercolor paper. I ended up taping 2 12 by 18 pieces together to fit all 26 of my colors. The first colors you see me laying down are my mother colors. I say mother instead of primary because not all of my colors are primaries. These mother colors get placed diagonally on the chart. From there, I can start the mixing process. I start with the first color on the chart, which happens to be French ultramarine, and mix in each color down the line to fill the chart. On one side of the chart, I make the mix as saturated as possible, while the other side is diluted so I can see the value range of each mix. In my opinion, you can't go wrong with making mixing charts. It can really help you stay familiar with your colors and take the guesswork out of mixing. Sometimes you will find a mix that you would not have expected from 2 colors, or find a color you love so much you add it to your palette. Now, this kind of mixing chart does have its drawbacks. The main problem I have with it is that I can't see the full range of mixes 2 colors can make. If you don't have secondary colors on your palette, you won't be seeing the mixes they can make with other primaries or secondaries. The good thing is that there isn't anything stopping you from making other charts or color tests if your chart isn't satisfying your needs. It's always good to play with your watercolors to get to know them a little better. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, consider liking and subscribing and let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.